Hi everyone, thanks for coming tonight. Just really want to get a sense of what the audience are looking for today before I start moderating the panel. Show of hands of anyone who is looking for a job in a startup. Okay, great. We have like half of the audience. Anyone looking to co-found or found a startup? Okay, nice. We have a couple of people here too. Also, before I start, we do have a startup showcase after the panel. If you want to have a 2-minute pitch about your startup, if you're looking for a co-founder, looking to hire, feel free to put your names here and you get 2 minutes to pitch. Also, feel free to let me know if you're too shy to come up to put your name here. But anyway, thanks for coming out today. And first of all, we'd like to thank 3 of our hosts, Coffee Space for organizing this, Hacker Dojo for sponsoring this event venue, as well as Group R for feeding us today for breakfast and stuff. So I'll actually let Hacker Dojo come up and let them do a 1-minute shout out. Tiana.
Hello everyone, my name is Tiana. I am the Community System Manager for Hacker Dojo. Hacker Dojo is a nonprofit organization that is a creators makerspace and co-work space that you see in this building. Our goal is to give access to those who need any kind of knowledge, materials, equipment, such as our electronics room, which has a bunch of soldering tools, 3D printers, and molds and makings and stuff like that. We have a classroom available for members and guests to use whenever they need an event to promote either their startup or just a study group and so on. We also have a laser room for laser cutting so that anyone who needs a laser cutter can utilize that as much as they want as a guest or as a member. But yeah, so we are currently raising $100K for sustainability, and we appreciate any donations. And if you have any questions about Hacker Dojo and how you can help, if it's not with money but with time, we are open to volunteers. All right, thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy your time at Hacker Dojo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiana. So let's get started. Let me introduce the panel today. Thanks for coming today. Our panelists, we have Ashwani, which is Senior VP of Engineering for Very Good Security.
I didn't.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I'm bad at this. Okay, here we go. We have Sean Murphy, founder of SKMurphy and Bootstrappers Breakfast. We have Samuel, which is the co-founder of Grupa. And we have Puneet right here, who is co-founder of CareerFlow. So tell us a little more about your background and what you're currently working on. Puneet, do you want to start?
Sure, all right. Can everyone in the back hear? Yes? All right, thank you. My background has been in technology. I started as a teenage entrepreneur about 10 years ago. If any of you remember BlackBerry 10, I used to build games and apps for that platform. It was very successful as a bootstrap business until BlackBerry 10 kind of shifted to becoming a car business instead of a mobile phone business. Anyhow, I've been in big tech since then. I worked at Amazon, Apple. I've also worked at a hedge fund as a software engineer. Recently, about 4 months ago, I decided to switch from big tech, where I was a senior engineer at Apple, to start CareerFlow, which is my new company, focused on helping job seekers get hired faster. So we build a bunch of free tools and technologies to make it easier as a job seeker. Our thesis underlying this is that job search is broken and it sucks for everyone, no matter what platform you use, and we're trying to change that up. We have right now like one tool that's available for free. You can use it. We have about 16,000 individual job seekers who have already benefited from this. It helps you optimize your LinkedIn profile so that you can get more search appearances, more views, etc. And it will basically help you if you're looking for a job, opportunities, etc. So yeah, excited to be a part of this panel.
Thanks, Vinny. Samuel, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks for hosting us and giving us opportunity to host this. My experience has been in engineering. Actually, I've always wanted to build since I was young, early age of 12, 13 years old. I started coding. I was so lucky because I found the superpower to create, and no one could take that away from me. And for me, my passion and mission is about empowering people to build the next big thing. And that has evolved in different forms. You know, I started a couple of companies before, and I noticed that it was easy for me to build the technology, but it was so hard for my friends to create. And many of them went to Y Combinator. Some of them I found those struggling with building. Even us as a group, when we started early with struggling as a two-sided marketplace, they have to figure out both sides and also build the technology. So what we're building at Gropa is to fundamentally change how work happens. And that for us is a big mission. The mission is to empower people to build the next big thing. And what that means for us is democratizing access to innovation. So we think that, today, early stage founders, are already disenfranchised from the opportunity to access talents. So today, the best talents are in big tech. They're locked in, and they are looking for ways to join companies, early stage companies. But the biggest problem is early stage companies are too risky. And especially in times like this, no one want to leave a stable job and go to join a startup. So we want to create a bridge. The bridge is wherever you are, either in big tech or whether you got laid off, you can join a company and actually help them build. And the beautiful thing about Gropa is we believe in the future of co-ownership, co-creator. And the co-creator economy is going to be the next economy. The last economy was about people finding ways to earn, but now it's about finding ways to build. So Gropa's platform allows people to work together, get and pay in equity. So for the first time in the world, you can hire an engineer from Google and pay them in equity. That's what we're doing at Gropa. Excited to be here.
Very cool. Okay, Ashwani, would you like to go next?
For sure. Hey folks, good evening. My name is Ashwani Wason. I work at Radio Security. I joined there about 3 months ago. I'm their SVP of engineering. My passion is to build great teams that build great products. And I've been a part of the startup ecosystem a number of times through my career. It's actually the thing that got me here is Robert Sato, right? He's been after me to come and talk to the folks, the like-minded folks who I might run into here. So that's great. And also this topic, big tech to startups, that's a little bit close to the heart. Folks who have been through the startup journey, companies get acquired. So I've been through that journey where one of my startups where I was working in was acquired, worked in a big company, longed to get back into the startup world, did that, and all through that, a bunch of things that I did along the way. Would love to share more about that with you. Would love to share about very good security and my journey along the way, and my learnings. Thanks for your time.
Rob, would you like to go?
Yeah, so I started, also a teenage entrepreneur, but software had been invented then, so I did photography. I worked on a computer called the TRS-80, which you might see in the Computer History Museum next to the Blackberry Xenon. Then I did a software startup with a buddy in college, and moved into EDA, electronic design automation, and semiconductors, and then worked in big companies for probably 20 years, doing mainly software acquisition, software integration, and doing a number of kind of change agent projects. Moore's Law was moving a little faster back then than it is today, and so there was quite a bit of innovation in the semiconductor side. I ended up at Cisco in acquisition integration, where we acquired about 30 companies in the late 90s up until what came to be called nuclear winter. But before then, we were kind of walking along, adding quite a bit. So I got to see that process. So that's me.
Thanks, so let's jump straight into the main topic today. So from big tech to startup. So how do you really go through the thought process of I'm gonna leave big tech, comfy job, a lot of money, a lot of perks, and be I want to go straight into the startup. How was your thought process like? Go ahead. Feel free to take the point.
Yeah, so I went through this really recently, right? Like I said, I started this company full time since September, but it's like been in the back of my mind for like almost a year now. I remember meeting Sam maybe like sometime like 5 or 6 months ago when I wasn't doing this startup full time. And so yeah, it's you know it's hard. It's because like you have a full time job, you have a steady income, you have your next stock, you know, vesting coming up. You don't want to lose that. You know, you stay another year, you might get promoted another time. There's all these things, right? And then on top of that, oh crap, now there's like this recession happening, and there's layoffs happening, and like, do I really want to, you know, leave what I have that like, you know, free money, not free money, but easy money. But you know, at least for me, and maybe this resonates with some of you guys in the audience, it was like, I've always wanted to build, and I see a problem statement that I'm really passionate about. I see the gaps in the market. I see how me and my team that I've built up or like put together that we want to work on this are able to solve this problem. And if there's a time to do it, because we're building for job seekers, right? Now is the time, because this is when there's going to be more people that are affected by layoffs, unfortunately. But this is a time when we can actually come in and help them and build like that bridge that's missing. So for me, it was very hard. I think in January 2022, I was like in my mind, and it's like, all right, I'm going to quit next week. And it took me 9 months to actually do that. But still, it's really about the conviction you have, and to be fair, like, it might have been a really bad decision, but it's also about regret minimization for me. I wanted to minimize the regret that I would have if I didn't do this. And so, that's at least how I thought about it, and hopefully that resonates with some of you guys.
Do you want to have anything to add on?
Yeah, when I met Puneet, we had already started. I remember in 2021, we got into Berkeley Skyway. And we initially got into Berkeley Skyway with an idea. The idea was actually a prototype. We were making money, but we're not satisfied because we wanted to truly create a new paradigm for work. We didn't want to create a company, we wanted to create a category. And so it was very intentional. Me and my co-founder, we're never fulfilled. So I met Puneet 5 or 6 months ago, but before then, we knew that the next wave of work is people don't have to choose between their jobs and their ambition to create something, a company. And so we knew that people wanted to be in the middle. And so Puneet was at Apple there, and we're like, imagine if you can be at Apple, having this your full-time gig, and because of remote work and all this stuff, you can actually make a startup that is doing the same thing you want to do, or something similar, and you're sure that, I speak to engineers, and sometimes I can even speak to 10 engineers a day, or 5, or 6. But what is underlying, the underlying factor is most of them are entrepreneurs. But the difference is how they access, perceive, and minimize risks. Some people really will not quit because they don't have that courage that they have to join, to start their own company. But many of them can actually join a company and help. They can get 1 to 3 or 5% equity in that company and truly help them build the company. And when the company raises money and takes off, they can now leave. Everybody can be an entrepreneur. That's what we believe. We believe that everyone has entrepreneurialness in them, but people assess risks differently. And so we thought that we create a new platform, a new economy, where people like me can decide to quit later, only when this thing is taken off. And have ownership in companies they help build. You can even literally build a team. So we have this functionality where you can come with your friends, your buddies from Uber or your paper mafias or like Apple or whatever you call them. So come and see a startup, maybe a YC company, whatever company that truly capture your conviction and your ambition and help them build. We think the world is going to create new innovation if people actually work together and build it. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, hopefully with your platform, more people here are going to become founders in the future.
Yeah.
But so like you all who take the leap into becoming a founder and like leaders in a startup, what is honestly like the biggest challenges or like unexpected like obstacles that you have met in your founder journey or journey in a startup? Ashwani, would you like to go?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of unknowns in general, as you can imagine, to go into startup world. Fundamentally, I think for me it's also about the journey, how your journey started. Like, I did my master's from UC Santa Barbara. I was enrolled in a PhD program. I did summer internship That internship was so influential for me. I was building reliable multicast protocols, working on Linux kernel, so that's my background is a little bit around that, in that world. That's what influenced my mindset about what I want to pursue in my career. And whatever that passion is that you folks have, that's what will drive you, is what you will find through your career. So it's about solving those problems, right? So startups will have $1 million problems, bigger companies will have $1 billion problems. And it's interesting problems to solve anywhere and everywhere. So it's all about that passion. So in terms of like the challenges that you might run into, you've got to identify the stage of the startup. Different startups will have different stages. How do you get to like the first 5 million of revenue? How do you get from 5 to 25, 25 to 50, and so on? So your challenges will be different along different places. What I've found is like my skill set as a leader is particularly suited to a certain stage of startup. I would not be a good fit for a certain type of startup. I might be an overkill. So that finding that sweet spot for you, where you best fit, where your talents best fit, whether it's in a leadership role or whether it's an individual contributor role, I think that's something you gotta introspect. And that introspection will come with certain experience, with you taking that leap of faith, taking some risks, and getting in there. Challenges nowadays, I've been through, I was saying Sean, 2000, 2008, then pandemic, and the time that we find ourselves in is particularly unique, right? It's very, very challenging. There is the macroeconomic crisis. We have a team in Ukraine. There's a geopolitical crisis happening there. We have a health crisis going on here. So it's like a perfect storm. So what it's bringing in for a startup world is quite unique. A lot of focus, and then the areas in which the companies you're identifying the right customer segment for you, your product market fit, your ideal customers, and focusing on those customers would be some of the key things that startups would have to focus on in this area.
John, anything?
Yeah, there are a couple things to that.
There's a lot of founders, but what are the mistakes they normally have, and like what are the learnings that they gain from
So at the Bootstrapper, we started the Bootstrapper Breakfast in 2006, and there's probably been, at this point, 500 meetings, right? So I look at entrepreneurship as involuntary, and I don't look at entrepreneurs as some higher life form compared to regular people, so to speak. There's people that have to be scout teachers, scout masters, and teach school, and keep the power on, and the lights on, and the water on. So I look at it as something that, for the most part, is involuntary. The other thing is that there's two peaks of entrepreneurship, the 20s and the 40s. And despite everything that we read kind of out of the VC ecosystem, the guys in their 40s are much more successful. So I look at your 20s as a chance to work in larger firms and actually figure out how business works, if that's what you want to do. I'm less encouraging. Derek Sivers wrote a great book called Anything You Want, and he advised you should change careers like Tarzan, which means that you don't let go of the vine that's holding your weight until you know that the new vine you're grabbing can hang on to it. And you can look at your current job as your investor in your next startup, as opposed to, I've got to get out of here. And I say that as someone that worked in large companies for 20 years, telling myself every week, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. But I was well certain. I guess a couple other things. There's a lot of focus on capital, but there's actually kind of broadly three kinds of capital. You've got financial capital, which we hear a lot about, but there's also intellectual capital, which is your know-how and your domain expertise, and that actually is about 10x the financial capital, for the most part, right? You're held back by your lack of domain expertise more than by money, for the most part. The third thing is your social capital, is your reputation. Are you a trustworthy person? Have you built relationships with people that will follow you or will do business with you? And so social capital, trustworthiness actually unlocks a whole bunch of relationships. It unlocks early customers. It unlocks partners. And we don't hear a lot about that as much, but in fact, that's probably something to focus on. So I'll stop ranting there.
I like that part, the 3 parts on like financial.
There's a book about it, actually. I have a great book there.
I'll make sure to take a look at this book after the session. So on the same topic, we feel that like, okay, 40 years old is a good time to become a founder because you have accumulated so much knowledge and capital and you already have your network. But what other traits that you think a good founder should have, and how do you know you're ready to become a founder? Yeah, I'm not gonna point to anyone, but
I think it's involuntary. I
Okay.
think it's involuntary. I think these guys are gonna start something no matter what, so that's. I started a company at 16, right? You just keep going. I don't think it's a rational, conscious decision, right? To me, the question is, can you take small bets, can you take small risks, you try small things out, as opposed to testing the depth of what water would go to deep. So I'll turn it over to this brighter and harder working.
For me, I think the thrill for me is going after big things. So you will never see me do a startup that is another fintech or is another SaaS. No. For me, it's about going after the biggest problem possible. Like, we were very intentional to not build a company. Every time I speak to VCs, I tell them I'm not building a company. I'm building an economy. Right? You have to be intentional about what you're looking for. Me, I want to do something huge, not something big. And so that's what drives me. I wake up in the morning, how do we make this thing huge? And the kind of risks I take, crazy risks. So my co-founder Dami always sometimes holds me back and those kind of crazy, sometimes irrational actually. And then, but what keeps us waking up every day pursuing that is chasing greatness. And that's
So switch a little and try to ask from the perspective of looking for a job in a startup. Like when people try to talk to founders and look for a startup to work for, what should they be looking at in terms of the founders and in terms of the startups?
I think maybe startup market fit, startup talent fit, right? For me, pursue adventure, not job, right? If you have to wake up and feel like you're working, then it's a problem. Sometimes you have to really do this without thinking of, am I going to get paid or when am I going to get paid? You just do it anyway. So if you want to work at a startup, look for a startup that aligns. So it's like selecting a city. You chose to be in Silicon Valley for a reason, because you wanted to be smart people that are trying to shape the future. So if you want to work at a startup, like for us at Group, we actually allow people to select a domain and the kind of space. And maybe we'll start adding, like Ashwani was saying, maybe we'll start adding, select even the stage of the company. We want you to go as specific as possible so that it doesn't feel like you're working. We don't want to make it feel like a job. We want to make it feel like an adventure. Something that they're looking for, we subscribed for a triathlon group, and I met this guy that has been a triathlete for 20 years, and he said, at all times it must be fun. And so yeah, that's what you should do. Fun.
Anything else to add on like in terms of like
Yeah, I would say, I think experiment first. If you don't have that experience, just select what's the right thing. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try a few things. My first startup, it folded, gave me great experience, brought me from Santa Barbara to the Bay Area. Next startup got acquired. I spent a few years at Citrix after that, a big company. Long to get back into the startup world, join the next startup. So my journey was like a little bit left, right, and center. But I kept exploring and learning about what I'm passionate about and chasing that. So experiment, find the right things, what motivates you. The other things that you want to look for in a startup, again, the founder involvement is one of the key things. The original co-founders, how closely they are involved with the startup. And this is this is me speaking as somewhat of a late stage startup person versus the founders here. But those are the things. I went through that thought process recently. Strong bases in tech, strong market presence, leader in the market would be great. Your total addressable market, is there positioning? Are you operating in a given vertical? The vertical could be healthcare, it could be financial, it could be anything. Or is it more horizontal? Is there a perspective, is there scope for growth where you can grow from vertical to a horizontal? That's going to like grow the company. But be comfortable in what you're doing. That's a really important fact. But like having that passion for solving problems in some company, doing anything in that space. Those are some of the things that I went through in my journey.
So I work with mainly very, very small teams, 2 to 5 engineers or scientists. And so if you're looking at joining that kind of opportunity, I would spend some time with them. I would maybe work with multiple teams at once, do small projects, see what they're like to work with. I would make sure you want to spend a lot of time with these people and that they share your values, because otherwise it's going to be very uncomfortable. So I would be slow to jump in, and I would sample multiple teams at once and do small projects for multiple of them at that size. For the larger guys with money, it's a whole different calculation.
That's a good perspective, because you don't know what you're getting into until you get in there. So
It's better if you deliver a project under pressure with somebody, even a small one, to see what the full kind of range of emotions you may experience working with people is.
How does this usually work if people want to test out, working with a couple of startups in a short period of time to see which fit best? How would it work for the founder side, and how would it work for the employee side?
So let's say it's just 2 people getting started. One mistake people make is that, so let's say you and I decide to try and team up. The first argument we have is who's got the better idea. Okay, let's figure out who's the smartest guy right before we start, which is wrong, right? Instead, I'll say, look, I'll spend 2 hours on your idea, and you spend 2 hours on mine. Or earlier on, if I was working with these guys, I'd say, fine, I'll give you a couple hours a week, I'll try and help you with this or that, or where I can add talent. And then from there, we see, is it working or is it not? Well, that's the great answer.
So we think the verb for that will be group-wise, right? So people can do multiple things. We actually see a future where you can do multiple things on group-up and then join one full-time. We actually see right now where we want to experiment. Next step is for folks who are laid off right now, can they do 2 gigs on group-up concurrently and then decide which one they want to do full-time. And maybe we think we're going to see a future of fractional. Yes, fractional have existed before. People have been doing fractional stuff as consultants, but it has not come to real the labor economy. So we're going to use those ones go crazy. We'll see how it goes.
So speaking of layoff, which is like what happened pretty recently, there's generally a pretty negative sentiment for like the market for startups. What are your outlook for like startups in the upcoming year? Ready? Would you like to go?
That's a tough question. So, I think there's the positive and the negative, right? The positive for startups is that, hey, big companies are laying off really talented people by no fault of their own, and so they need jobs somewhere, right? And if startups provide that opportunity, and like we've been discussing, right, there's that kind of, association that you can make with the team or the vision that the company has, like you'll be a great fit there. Hopefully you help that startup grow, and everyone will make money at the end of the day. So it's good for startups in a way that the balance has shifted. So about 4 years ago, 2019, 2018, I was an engineering manager at a unicorn startup, and one of our biggest problems was we couldn't hire any engineer from like in the Silicon Valley. And the biggest reason was like no matter what offer you gave someone, they would have a better offer from Google. Like it didn't matter. We had new grads who would say like, hey, I need like 200K because Google's going to give me that much. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. And so there was this problem genuinely, like we couldn't hire even though we were a unicorn startup. And we had to resort to like, techniques of like, okay, we'll get someone from Seattle, fly them out to the Bay Area, and then hopefully they'll work here, hire someone remotely, et cetera, et cetera. Today, I think because of the shift in the scenario with the layoffs, that kind of the scale kind of will balance itself out in where talent will work at startups, work at big companies, et cetera. The negative for the startups, which I'm also facing, is that getting capital is much harder now, right? People or investors are expecting much more for much less, and so that's a challenge. And many startups might end up shutting down. In fact, possibly ones that were overcapitalized in the past few years might not get the capital they need to run, etc. So there's a risk to the startup itself, but to the startups that have money or are able to hire, it's a great time, and it's a great time for talent that was sitting, in a company that had layoffs to reevaluate what they want to work on, how they want to work on it.
Interesting. We discussed this in the office today. There are about 1 million ideas every year. 1 million people are starting startups every year in America. 200,000 people have been laid off as of this week. Right? So that's still 1 to 5. Right? And so the reality is, for those who have been laid off, they have offers. They always have offers. They always have better offers. Like Google, today we're talking about an engineer has at least 4 offers. And for us, the way we try to see the problem, we try to change the perspective. The problem is startup equity is still not seen as money, but RSU is seen as money. So we are going to look at it differently. We're not going to say, oh, whether I want to match or not. We're going to change how the world sees equity. We'll make you see it as money. And what that means is there are many interesting startups that are going to build finance or economic products around getting loan on equity. You know there are risks with that. But imagine if you tell a Google engineer that actually sees your startup as doing something truly innovative. Because again, these people have offers. What will make them at least consider a startup is that they're doing something interesting. Because what they're going to do at Google is still legacy stuff. It's not building something new. So let's assume founders are forced now to talk about or pursue innovative ideas. Second thing is, let's say you can only afford to give them 150,000. And you say, Google is going to give you 300K. We can give you 150K in cash. We'll give you the remaining equity. Right? As I said, today the problem is the engineer still doesn't see that part as cash because he believes that RSU is cash. And so we think that if the world starts saying that, okay, this is an innovative idea, I have 150K in cash, but I also have equity that, I can liquidate.
How do you make them see that? It's very hard to
Ability
think
to
about
liquidate.
the ability to liquidate.
Or at least get loan or something. People want to know that this is something that I can access. Right? They don't believe yet.
Yes, because it's risky.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So if ideas, again, quality of ideas and innovation and institution increase, the startup have to be forced to talk about innovative ideas to these people, and they have to consider that. But also the world need a new innovation around equity and equity liquidation. That will make it actually going to start up and say, I can work with them, get to it. If I need some loan, if I'm, crunch financially, I can access some capital. But again, it all boils down to money. So I think this is money innovation rather than just displacement and the allocation of human capital.
If I may add to what Puneet was saying, he laid the stage perfectly for me. Unicorns and so on. I read an article somewhere about the forecast predictions for startups. It used a phrase which has stuck with me. Next year, maybe next couple of years, is it going to be an era for unicorn, or is it going to be an era for cockroaches? Don't throw your balls at me. Cockroaches, because there's going to be, he also said, there's going to be a funding winter, right? Funding freezes. So how do you find what's the right company for you? And I say this with, as an immigrant here, I went through that phase where I had to this was year 2000 when I entered into the industry here. It was really difficult for me to see people around me having to pack their bags and go back home with people who lost their jobs. And I say this with that perspective, that mindset that you ought to choose wisely, because in some cases, some of you might be on visa, everyone's situation is very different, so you have to choose wisely whether you can, how much risk tolerance you have in your life to make things happen. Because someone here earlier mentioned, right, you ought to be comfortable in doing what you're doing so that you can apply 100% towards that problem solving and advancing there. So maybe making those wise choices around this is what would be my suggestion.
I'll argue that capital will always pursue the next big thing.
Speaking of the next big thing, so there's previously the trend of Web3, now on generative AI. So how should founders and people think
look for people that are able to get money out of customers. What people are spending money on, right? And so it's really, really hard to go out of business if you're generating revenue and generating profit. Right? And so that would be my advice. So the cockroach thing was Katerina fake, but there's a guy, Alex Lazaro, who's come up with the camel formulation, which you might, I like. It's a little friendlier same idea, but friendly. I would, if you want to do it, if you've got to go do it, I would find a way to start selling something now. Maybe it's your skills, your services, your talents, freelancing, whatever. Maybe it's content. Maybe it's integrating existing off-the-shelf stuff. But I would find ways to figure out if people are going to pay for it, because some amount of seed funding is still going to be available, but the later rounds are going to be very, very hard. And I think right now there's approximately 1,700 unicorns. If you were to march those guys to market, the size of that class would probably be half or 1/3 of what it is, right? So there's a lot of things that look like equity based on a funding round 2 years ago that may not exist, right?
Zombie.
Not even zombie. I mean, it's more like FTX. The money's not there.
Oh.
Anyone want to add to this trend question before I close my official question and open it to the audience?
Yeah, I guess, because the trends keep changing, right?
Right.
Every year. And one is a trend because of a new technology, and the other is because of the market adopting that technology. So I think Web3 keeps going in these hype cycles. My personal opinion on this, especially for engineers, is don't chase the trends unless you're really passionate about it. For example, Web3 is a good example. I have never been good with finance or understanding how the stock market works and things like that. I have very cursory knowledge, but I don't dabble into it deeply. And so for me, when I look at DeFi, Web3, it's even if I were to learn the technology and become really good at developing the underlying, I'm not inclined towards that space anyway. So I'm not going to do that. But I know people who are my friends and people around me that are yo, that's the next big thing. I'm just going to quit my role as a back-end engineer and go join a Web3 startup. Right? And so I think both ways are fine, but for me, at least, the way I look at it is I was really passionate about games. I built games, and then that moved on to one thing into another, and I moved into computer vision, which is still very visual, and that's where I stayed for 5 years. And along that, generative AI came, advances in natural language and stuff came, but I didn't dabble in those because I didn't see myself necessarily being super passionate about those things versus what I felt I could be doing and growing in. So you have to make that trade-off somewhere.
For me, I think that at the end of the day, I don't chase. The idea is not to chase the technology. See the technology as a tool to unlock something bigger. So for me, something bigger right now, the world is going to go into an economic crisis. The solution is an economic product, whether it's a marketplace or a B2B, whatever. At the end of the day, it's economics. So chase economics. Right? Don't chase. Just look at the big problem. So people want to make more money. So does your product help people make more money or save them money? So it's economics. And so I think you want to build economic product right now. The last year was about building finance products. So we had everyone wanted to do a fintech. Everybody was doing crypto. Right? So that was finance innovation. The next innovation is going to be economical innovation and healthcare innovation. So that's where.
Thank you.
On the just GPT note, we have also tomorrow here same time GPT. Good speaker, just small ad. So if you want to learn more, which is also would like to see you tomorrow. Thank you.
AP3 panels.
Yeah.
Ask Sako more about it. Okay, I would like to open questions Q&A to the floor. So anyone has any questions for the panel today? No questions.
I do have. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
I think there's a collision. Why don't you start?
Confusion?
No.
A collision.
Traffic collision.
I see.
Yeah. Please go ahead. I'll go next.
Okay. I think Ashwani?
Ashwani.
Yes. I think you mentioned something about the founder or the founders being in the company, and how do you view that as a requirement for you joining the startup? Is it compulsory, or how do you think that affects anyone's here request to join a startup?
Yeah, again, it probably would be answered there, would depend on the stage of the startup. Like early stage startups, you would expect founders to be involved. It's about the vision. That vision lives very deeply with the founders. I value that a lot. That vision, but they set the goals for the company. So a lot of us look for mission-driven companies. I certainly look for them before very good security. I was at OpenGov. Sam was talking about like innovation from the perspective of not chasing technology, but what problems you're solving for the customers. We were solving problems for our nation's local governments. That's truly mission-driven something. So that passion that you derive, I found that come deeply and first-hand from the founders. There's also like a lot of like background that you could be very successful in kind of ramping up if the founders are closely involved. But then at the same time, after a certain stage of the company, the founders have to get into that mindset when the companies are more successful about when they need to start bringing in leaders for the next stage of the company. So that self-awareness has to grow over time. So you might find in late-stage startups that the founders are involved in somewhat of a, like an advisory role or something more than more operational or a day-to-day role.
Yeah.
So depending upon where you're going, but for me the chase is for that vision, a mission, that passion that I derive directly from the founders.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm not a developer, but I found my passion, like I'm a technical program manager, so I work with teams, small, large, work in product space, and that's kind of where I find my passion. So I'm trying to understand from you guys, what is the right level of startup for me to join? Say if I want to join a startup rather than be in the big tech, what would be the right time for me to join a startup? Because like early on, they need more engineers. They're more focused on even just developing things, and my skill set is more around giving more structure to chaos, kind of growing teams, helping the leadership kind of focus on the right things, prioritize, kind of then go to market and go from there. So what is, like, how should I think about, like, when I'm thinking of joining a startup, like, what would be the right time? So how can you help?
Just very briefly, I think there's different sizes that have different problems. I think if you target guys that are more at a head count of 80 to 120, they'll be in enough pain, they'll be more anxious for structure. If you try and come into a group that's 15 or 25, they're probably going to resist that.
Yeah, I think there's, you know this better, you're in that space, there's program management, there's technical program management. From technical program management perspective, I think you would find probably more platformy companies as looking for someone like yourself, because you'd be able to bridge the gaps between the different departments. So Sean's certainly right, I mean that size of the company, what you might find is like CDC plus companies when they're like positioning for scale. They have multiple engineering teams. Some of them might be serving the needs of internal engineering teams. That's where I found like PPMs to be particularly successful, to bridge those gaps and play ball with the architects and so on internally. So that would be my experience.
I have a different answer. I spoke with the technical program. I spoke with an architect today, and he feels like he's being boxed into being an architect, right? So people find their identity from what they do. I don't know about you guys, but me, I don't like to be boxed in. And so I'm not going to do. I like to build. I like to be fluid, right? When it comes to functions, I know what I cannot absolutely do. I don't like doing, which is operations. So my co-founder does operations. I don't like it, and so I do it if I have to, but I don't derive joy doing that. So it's about what are you looking out for? What do you consider as joyful execution? And so if you're not deriving joy from being where you are now and you're looking for, okay, I'm a builder. So there's build, grow, scale. So if you are a builder, you want to go early. If you think you can grow, you like to take something from 1 to 10, right? You go for mid-stage, series B, C. You want to just focus on scaling it to making it more stable, which most likely is what you're doing now as a technical program manager. You do it, but I see people at some point feel bored doing that, and they want to go back to being hands-on and doing all those interesting stuff. So I want to say, don't limit yourself and don't feel boxed. Just go crazy.
I wouldn't set fire to 20 years of experience.
I'm sorry?
I wouldn't set fire to 20 years of experience. If your skills are actually orchestration and getting people to get along and diagnosing problems at team level and all this boring stuff that it doesn't involve building, there's organizations that need that. And I wouldn't throw that all away to compete against somebody that can type really fast.
I have a question. So for you actually. I have a question for you. Why didn't you work until your startup could replace your income before you quit your job?
So the question is that why didn't I work until basically part-time until my startup could replace my income? That's a good question. I think there's multiple reasons. So one is I was already working with my co-founder part-time already. So it wasn't necessarily we were building the exact thing we're building today, but we were already brainstorming, ideating, things like that. The other aspect is kind of I had the risk-taking capability, both financially as well as mentally, to be able to just go all in. I felt for me that was a better choice, and like I said, it took me like 9 months to actually take that decision, but that's the decision I wanted to take. And by the time we started the company, we already talked to tons of customers, right? We already had hired people, developers essentially, to work with us, and so a lot of the groundwork was already done before I decided to go full time. But going full time for me was like a mental switch, and I just wanted to do that.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions from the floor.
According to you guys, what's that one quality or trait founder should not have?
Founder.
Okay.
We're the wrong people, man. We're founders.
So a desire to get all the data. If you need all the data to make a decision, then you should not do a startup. You've got to be willing to go on about 60 to 70% and be comfortable with being wrong a third of the time. And if you can't do that, if you need certainty, then don't do a startup.
I actually like that. I think this may be more of like a quality. It's just sense of urgency. If you want to decision making, as I said, 60-70%. Sometimes the data may not actually be there. Sometimes it's just your thoughts, right? You just know it, and hesitation is what kills startups most of the time. You hesitate to make the right decision. You hesitate to do something. And most times, you have to always measure the risks, right? Like maybe I need to fire that person now versus wait. So just moving fast, all right? You're not going to die. All right, you can always be good. One thing I learned before, I used to hesitate to make decisions, and after I learned that, even if you make a mistake with any customer pricing, you can always go, by the way, that was a startup. You can always go back. It's not final. The war is not going to end, right? So don't hesitate, right? Or if you do, maybe talk to your co-founder and then try to make decisions as quick as possible, right? Or sleep over it and make it next day. Move faster.
Well, along the same line, I think if you're a perfectionist, it's a great idea to be a founder because progress is always better than perfection, and you really need to put things out there and see what works and then come. Okay, last question. Anyone for the floor? Oh, you? Oh, okay, let you go.
Okay, I can go one more. Last.
How what level do you start once you do your customer research and you know what your product's all about? What level, at what point percentage of your product you start selling target your customers with a completely done instead of basic MVP? How do you, when you know that it's, customers inside?
To me, you start selling before you've got the product. You sell content that solves the same problem, you provide services that solve the same problem, you provide integration with existing solutions that solves the same problem. You start selling as soon as possible. Things you can deliver. Now, I'm not talking about selling futures where you take your money a day and ship it. But start solving the problem as soon as you can for money. Because the number of startup failure stories that begin, we asked them what they wanted, they told us, we went away for 6 months and built it, and then came back and they wouldn't pay us.
So we started group on Excel sheets, type form, collected startup data. I'll never forget. I still have those photos. On the other end, we collected founders data. We did the marketing manually. We sent them Stripe link, made payments, economic products. That's it. People just want solutions. People didn't ask for software. So deliver solutions.
Right. He could solve the problem as a concierge or Wizard of Oz. He can pay for it. Then he knows if he develops the product, he's going to make more.
I'm hearing be happy and then go for it.
Awesome.
Sako.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for all. As a hiring manager, what are the signals you look for when you're hiring? And second part, how you retain the talent after you hire and how you evaluate the performance.
So we have a principle at Group, Dami and I, it's simple. You must love Group more than we do. And so, so we're talking to you, you have to ooze out that love and passion. We just know it, we know that we're going to hire that person. If just from the conversation, we're thinking that your perspective is wide beyond what we're doing right now. Right now we're building a marketplace, but if you see people just really saying, this could become like this, and we see that passion, you will know it. And you will know that this is the person. You don't even look at CVs, like just glance through LinkedIn and have a conversation and maybe invite the person, and as Sean said, we actually get them sometimes to go, like jump on work, right, or something, or like somehow we want to interface with them or like get them as close to the problem.
I worry that by definition a bad hire is a good interview. So I would try and do a small project. I would try and pick some small separate piece of work that doesn't involve core IP and do a project together that you pay. I'm talking about for a very early stage, not so you have to understand, he and I are kind of in different universes. He's talking about these guys, I don't know, they're plasma.
I'm sure Ashwani has a good perspective on it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, doing good at whatever it is that you bring to the table, program management, development, ops, security, whatever the role might be, right? It's the beauty of SaaS world that there's so much that you can bring to the table that you probably have all seen that DevOps infinite curve. There is literally 15 things on that thing. You could be great at what you do. That's something, that passion that you bring to the table. What you bring to the table is very important. You could be good, and if you want to go from X to Y, to your point, not be boxed, completely fine in supporting that, but showing what you bring to the table is good. Growth mentality from my perspective would be really important. So that is learning new things and how you would manage challenges. The third thing that I look for really is ownership. So that part, ownership and accountability, if that's not there, that would be a deal breaker, and that's especially for me as I hired like a lot of managers, that having that ownership, someone who can own and take a piece of something and drive it, moving forward, that's really key for me. So you asked a lot of other questions, I know, like performance and how do you measure.
I still use ICME model.
ICME
You should
model
mention.
I think one additional point is like, because I'm hiring for like a very early stage startup. I've done for like a bigger startup, and I've also done at big tech. I think some of the things which Ashwani said are like very common, right? You want those like things regardless of what stage you're hiring for, because that makes a very good hire. And then what Sam said is very applicable to like us where we're early stage, because for me, like if I want to hire someone, the first thing I think about is like, can I go to sleep at night and this person like or let's say I'm sick for a week, can this person like do their job without me, and then can they do it better than they would have, with me sitting over them on their shoulder? And I think that's really important because you grow with the people that you hire, right? Or essentially, like everyone grows with the startup. And that's also why I think a lot of people would be interested to join a very early startup, because you're taking the risk of obviously this thing going bust, but you're also participating in the upside. And participating in the upside doesn't just mean financial upside, it means like your contributions and how much you're willing to put in actually like makes that, upside go further up. And so, I just look for like one hire I made, and I want to give a specific example, is an engineering hire. And I was interviewing a couple of folks, and I didn't really make a decision, but I found this person to be very like passionate about my company in the space, and they got it. They were like, oh, this can, as he said, this can become this. But I really didn't, take action on whether we want to move forward or not. And this person like kept following up like every alternate day, and they were like, hey, I love the interview. I have other offers, but like I want to talk to you again, and let's just see if it. And over time, I realized like they're truly passionate about this space. Like they get it, they can see the vision, and they're probably going to contribute 10x more than what someone else would. And that's true actually to this day.
Yeah. To Sean's point, just contributing. Sometimes Dami and I just tell them, hey, just go and play with the program, come and tell us all the problems. Play with it, and like, that will also be a filter for people that really just don't care about it. Like they will come back and they will tell you the problems. So wait for an email. If there's no email then.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for Panelist, and thank you for all the questions. Thanks Sean, thanks Ashwani, thanks Sam, and thanks Pradeep. Before I close off this session, we actually have a few startup showcase. So can I see another round of show of hands of who is actually looking to join a startup? So like hiring managers would know. Any show of hands? Okay, so you know who they are. I'm gonna invite our first startup showcase, Hanson. 1 minute pitch and what roles you are looking for. Okay, go for it. Here. Let me become space for you. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
It is. Okay, go ahead.
You were using my chest is bigger than hey everyone, my name's Hanson. My big tech to startups journey started about 1 year ago when I left Facebook to try this whole startups thing. Kind of time to peak actually. So I worked on ML platforms at Meta, and naturally as an ML person, I'm super passionate about data and its potential to drive business impact. And if you look at the industry as a whole, you'll see that data is exploding everywhere. Any business these days can spin up a data warehouse thanks to things like Snowflake and BigQuery and Redshift. But the problem is there's not enough data people in the world to actually work with that. And the reason for that is all the powerful stuff that you can do with data is gated behind code, and specifically SQL, sometimes a bit of Python. And if you worked on a data team or know people on data teams, you'll see that they're stuck with tons of ad hoc requests because they just can't keep up with the work. But there is a data tool that anybody can use, and that's the spreadsheet. So there's about 160 million Google Sheets users, 800 million more Excel users in the world. And it really is a very intuitive interface. But for the last 30 years, it just hasn't kept up with the rate that data has increased in the world. You try to import, like 100K rows, and it just blows up. And so that's where we're starting. And our mission is really to make the most intuitive interface for data there is out there, but one that also scales to work with anything. So what we're building out a platform on top of spreadsheets that lets you ingest, as big of a data set as you can imagine, and manipulate it without knowing SQL or Python, but instead using UIs and intuitive spreadsheet formulas. And eventually, in 5 years, I think anybody that can use a spreadsheet should be able to become a data scientist. So we're looking for a founding engineer in San Francisco, someone who ideally is very passionate about data and data tooling. It is 3 of us just in an office in San Francisco, so as John said, it would be pretty crazy to just join us. So we are very open to these kinds of contracting projects. I have one going on with a candidate right now. Another candidate just did a hackathon project with us last week. We're also really excited about the use of GPT and AI and things like this to further lower the barrier of entry to manipulating data. We do have some seed funding. We just finished an accelerator, Sequoia's ARC program, so that was very exciting. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Hi everyone, my name is Uday. I'm from Foodaholics. Before I jump into what we do, I wanted to share one story, quick one. Me and my wife both are foodies, and whenever we want to try a new restaurant or even a new dish, we have to sit together and make it like a task, read through reviews and find out which restaurant serves the most loved food. So then we thought, why not to have a Yelp just for dishes, where people will be able to rate individual menu items, right? So that's where we come up with Foodaholics. Now users can go on Foodaholics and rate individual menu items at the same time. Now say for example, I don't like the service, I want to rate the service as well. So the way we have done it is we will review the menu items as well as you'll be able to rate individual services, like how was the hospitality, wait to be served, wait to be seated, so that it becomes a lot easier for anyone to review as well as to look at the review and make a decision whether they want to go to that restaurant or not. So that is what we have built. We have feedback from early users and from our restaurant owners, and we are implementing those and releasing a new version in January. And what we are looking for is sales and marketing. I think most of the people here are in tech, but yeah, I just want to share what we are looking for. We are into sales and marketing, where people will be able to visit the restaurant owners and spread awareness about our product and then how it is beneficial for the restaurant owners. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by and talk to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, Theo is looking for a co-founder, so listen up.
So actually, I'm actually not looking for a co-founder.
Oh, what?
First off, thanks for Panelist for the great discussion earlier, and shout out to Corinne, Hazim, and Felix for the coffee space community you guys are building. So my name is Theo. So as many of you in the audience, I'm also an engineer by background. Did my undergrad at Berkeley in electrical engineering and computer science. Did an MBA at Stanford recently. So essentially, we're building a micro consulting platform for software engineers. Many of you might know the expert network space. It's a billion-dollar industry, multiple companies with billion-dollar valuation, and we're doing this for software. So essentially, it's a huge market. It's really new, and we see a billion-dollar potential here. I'm looking to build a world-class team. And essentially, for us right now, I love to talk to engineers. If you're looking for an opportunity or not, just want to connect with you, chat with you. And so that's for me right now. If you would love to talk, can chat, look for me at the mixer, and we'd love to talk to you more. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, okay, thanks. I was wondering if you're here, but go for it.
Hello, my name is Brian Kim. I'm the founder of Money for Green. And basically, what we're working on is trying to build a world where people make money doing the right things. And in this case, for our biggest challenge is saving our planet. And so I used to lead ESG kind of product development at Lyft, where we kind of saw that, hey, we're investing a lot of money in sustainability initiatives and being carbon neutral, and we are making money for it. How can other companies do this? And now we're seeing more and more corporate sustainability spending is reaching almost $1 trillion this year. There's a lot more momentum in the space, and what we want to do is we want to show companies that, hey, if you make the investment that's costly to actually address your carbon emissions and sustainability business practices, we can make you more money. And the way we do that is we market your sustainability initiatives to consumers, and we can kind of create this platform where, hey, consumers can give direct feedback saying, I will want to support your company if you commit to these sort of initiatives that will reduce your emissions by not just tens of tons like we do every year, but millions of tons. And so some of the pilot projects we're working on is things like JetBlue wants to buy more sustainable aviation fuel that has 80% less carbon emissions. We market that to consumers saying, hey, we can get you $100,000 in revenue like that. People are excited about this idea of, hey, it's going to save millions of emissions, and I also just buy a flight for the same price. And we say, hey, you have customer brand loyalty now, you have actual revenue coming in because your sustainability is a competitive differentiator. And so that's some of the things we're working on, and kind of early stages of building the platform now, still kind of working out these pilot deals. And so I'm looking for people that are just down to collaborate initially. Again, before being co-founders, it's just like, hey, let's work on a project for a couple weeks around validating some of these things, or these, do we like working with each other? And then kind of first week just working together, second week paid. Then if we still like working each other, kind of seeing where that relationship goes based on time and skill set. And so yeah, I'm software engineer by trade, but kind of just looking for anyone from sales to just scrappiness. You want to learn how to do marketing or build anything or Chrome extensions, etc. There's a lot of different ways we want to go about this. So if you want to just either reach out to me, Brian at moneyforgreen.com, or just talk to me afterwards. Happy to chat.
Sorry. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the panelists.
Tino has.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So late to the game. Thanks for the opportunity. So what we're doing is we've essentially we've made reality the fact that everyone wants to buy exactly what they want, but usually in a world of mass production it doesn't exist. And so we're creating a shared economy platform around manufacturing robotics so that people can buy exactly what they want. So sales next month are expected to be around 400,000. We're producing cabinetry and wood furniture in the shared economy marketplace. The reason I'm up here is we have a patent. The patent is on the method, and it's a utility patent using augmented and virtual reality as a controller for the manufacturing automation. So what you see is what you get manufacturing. Change it in AR or VR, and 2 weeks later you receive the product as you've configured it, as you've configured the image. And so I'm looking for someone that can help push that segment of the business forward. So Unity engineers, C#. I'm a finance guy. I'm already way over my skis here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna give a last shout out about Coffee Space. So we are actually building a startup network as well as a startup knowledge repository. We also host weekly founder events in SF itself. We do casual things like game nights, like hike, like coffee tasting session, just to bring all the early stage founders together. That's what we are starting from. Planning to expand more in the future and to different cities. If you're interested, check us out on coffeespace.com and sign up on the wait list. But anyway, thank you everyone tonight for listening in, and appreciate all the panelists for all your insights, and thank you so much. And we are gonna have a networking mixer, so free and casual later, and yeah, happy hangout everyone. Thank you so much.